Have you ever had a gig that you've been performing where something has gone really, really, really wrong and you had to find a way to get through that gig, either just dealing with the problem or finding a way to get a solution to that problem? Well, that's what I would call a gig horror story. Welcome back to Danny Robertson Music, where we're helping you be the performer that you are meant to be. I'm Danny Robertson. Thanks, as always, for joining me. Today, you're not going to hear me talk very much. You're going to hear a lot of people that I know talk about some situations that they have encountered performing gigs and the way that they either overcame the situation or dealt with it. If you've never performed a live show before, this is something to be critically aware of when you go and do live performances. Things go wrong. And it's how you choose to handle those obstacles in your live performance that speak to your character. And honestly, it kind of applies to both live performance and life. If you learn to understand that there will always be hurdles to jump over with both performance and with life, you're gonna do great. Now, if you have ever encountered a tough situation at one of your own gigs and would like to tell a gig horror story that you had to overcome, I'd love to hear about it. There's a link down below the video that you can click into and shoot your own video, and you can send it right to me, okay? And who knows, maybe you'll end up on the next Gig Horror Stories video. But in the meantime, let's listen to some of my friends and their gig horror stories. Hopefully you've never had to deal with any of these.
So I was doing this gig out in Western Michigan, and I typically play a vintage saxophone that's 70 years old. And I pull my saxophone out of my case, getting ready for cocktail hour or sound check, and it just doesn't play. Like nothing. I am like freaking out, trying to look and make sure that like everything is aligned on the instrument. Things are sealing. It looks fine. And I happen to be doing the gig with a band director who's been in the music education realm for over 30 years. So he took a look at my instrument, and one of the key rods on the saxophone right here was out of alignment, and I didn't even notice it pulling it out of the case. So he fixed it. He pointed it out where it was misaligned. I popped it back into place, and I was able to play the gig. But lesson learned, always check your instruments before leaving for the gig, especially if you're doing something out of town. Even if you take good care of your instruments, you never know. Once you pull that instrument out of the case at the gig, you want to make sure everything's functioning properly.
And we were playing a political event, and we were set to perform the night of the election. Right before we went on stage, we found out this candidate lost. It was a very somber moment. The political figure's family, they were in the front row. They were all crying. And they said, you know, it's too bad. You know, we put everything we had into this election, but the Hubie Ashcraft Band is here, and we're still going to have a great time. Take it away, Hubie. And there we were, you know, all these folks crying in the front row. Just a very sad situation. So it was a very challenging set that night, but we made the most of it, and we tried to brighten people's spirits through music. That's what we do as musicians. But I remember that one being a really tough show to perform, and we got through it though, and it seemed like everybody enjoyed the set, and that's the main thing.
So I was working for a well-known artist that is associated with jazz. If I said this name, you'll go, oh yeah, that's the jazz guy. For his large ensemble of brass players, we were in Boston. It was February. It was -20. We were put up at this beautiful equestrian estate. And the deal was we were paid for our performance. We were paid for a master class, and that was it. So we're supposed to stay 2 days at this equestrian, very fancy resort. So we get there, and the accommodations are super nice, but no one bothered to tell us that they turn off the heat at 5 o'clock to save money. Okay, so what are you supposed to do in -20 weather? So I complained to the tour manager. I'm like, how dare they turn off the heat at 5 o'clock? We're going to freeze to death in here. And she was like, oh, that's so sad. And they had little bundles of wood that you could buy for $5. And I asked the tour manager, are you going to pay for the wood? And she's like, no. So I turn on the hot water in the shower and in the sink, and I just run it full blast for like a few hours, fill up a few bottles, stick them under the covers so they don't freeze to death. In addition, this well-known jazz artist turns to me 5 minutes before the masterclass and says, hey, I don't really do like big band or jazz. Could you like teach this masterclass for me? With no extra pay? With no extra nothing? I taught the masterclass, mostly because I wasn't given much of an option. Never work without a contract. That's the moral of the story. So I wasn't paid for extra work, and I damn near froze to death. Happy Halloween.
I arrived early, as I like to do, to be professional and courteous of people's time. And the band leader says, hey, we've got to take off. We're going to go get ready. Can you play some music for the dinner guests while they eat? This is a while ago. He explains to me that the playlist is on Spotify. I didn't even know what that was. So I create an account on Spotify. He's already gone, and I find the playlist, but I don't have any way to hook my phone up to the PA. So even though we've got a couple $1,000s worth of PA gear, the only thing that I could do was to tape my phone to a mic stand and put a microphone right up to the little 1/2-inch speaker and play music for the guests while they ate dinner. This is a lesson in preparedness and knowing what the gig is going to require ahead of time. Thanks.
I've had some bad gigs. There was the time I was playing outside and a big gust of wind blew my saxophone off of its stand and it fell to the ground. I picked it up, did a once over, and I thought it was fine. But on the first song, I quickly realized that it couldn't play most of the notes. Played all of my solos that day. And apparently, no one noticed. There was a time I set up in a barn in complete darkness, and I didn't know if we were going to play the gig that day. There was a time I was at a wedding, and a couple was having a fantastic time, so good that they slammed into some giant heavy letters spelling the groom's name. And of course, those landed on my saxophone, and my saxophone was another shape after that. Most recently, there was a gig where I had been sick for a week, and I went to play a note during sound check, and I instantly started coughing uncontrollably. My throat was on fire, and I really felt like I needed to throw up. No matter how many times I tried to play, that was always what was happening. So didn't play that day at all.
I was invited to play for this wedding that was kind of wood nymph inspired by this crunchy hippie couple, and I loved it. And they built this like fairy princess dream thing in the middle of the woods, and it was beautiful. It was wonderful. They had twinkle lights everywhere. Everything was just like powered by this big generator because they're in the middle of the woods. It was amazing. We are about to go on. We're kind of doing our pre-show thing. And in the process of going up, I trip and fall. What I trip over is the main line to that big generator powering everything. Everything goes pitch black. Like you can't see in front of your face. And everybody's like, oh, like it's spooky because we're in the middle of the woods. And through that all, you just hear my voice ring out, I am so sorry. It all turned out fine. We plugged it back in. We got our phones out. It worked out. However, then after that, I had to go on and perform. Horror story.
I was on a gig with a jazz band one time, and we had an outdoor gig, and everybody's iPads were on the music stand, and the sun was coming back at us on our backs so hard that the iPads that had everybody's music on started heating up really bad. And like an iPhone, if it gets too hot, they just shut off. We had to kind of like hesitate a little bit while some guys ran to their cars and got the paper copies. I can think of another time when I was on a gig with a really great country band. Everything was going along real fine. Toward the end of the first set, power gone. All their amplification, their ears, everything out the window. The cool thing is I'm a trumpet player and you don't need any amplification for the trumpet, but without the rest of the guys, that had to be put on hold until they could figure out the source of why that power went out and get that fixed. Finally, I'd also like to share, I was at the late Jimmy Buffett's concert in Chicago at a Toyota theater one time. Big power outage for the Jimmy Buffett concert. And that man was such a pro. he just kept playing on his acoustic. So everybody in the front row in this huge crowd started singing along with him. And then it kind of permeated back. People could hear the tunes, and it just kept going back and back. And before you know it, the huge crowd, everybody at that concert was singing along with his songs a cappella. It was absolutely stunning. They did finally get the sound back on, and Jimmy Buffett said something about, thank goodness for duct tape. It fixes everything. So it was really cool.
So early on in my career, I was playing in a rock band. We've traveled quite a bit, playing colleges, bar circuit. This particular trip, we were going to Louisville, where we played often for 2 nights, 2 different clubs. We got to our gig on the first night, and I took out my road case that I always take my bass in when traveling, and it was empty. I had put my bass in a gig bag for a local gig earlier in the week and didn't put it back. So I'm 200 miles from home with no bass. Luckily, there was another bass player, local guy that often came to see us play, and he ran home and got me a bass to use for the weekend, refused to take any money for it, and the weekend went smoothly. 2 lessons. 1, don't be an idiot like me. Check your gear before you leave town. 2, bands can be competitive. Wherever you go, don't make enemies. I hadn't done that, and luckily this guy respected me enough and offered his assistance, and everything worked out.
I was going through and thinking of some of the worst gigs I've ever played, and the only one that I can remember that we had ever left because the conditions were so bad, I was in a cover band called What She Said. This is quite a few years ago, and our booking agent booked us to play at a campground, and we had required a stage, obviously power supply, and cover. So we were told there would be a tent, power, and a stage. And we pulled up to the site to play, and much to our horror, we saw a 10 by 10 tent, about 100-foot extension cord pulled to the max, with no ground, just one of them. And the stage was a warped piece of plywood sitting on the ground. So we took about 30 seconds, looked at each other, and got back in the vehicle and left. So usually the show must go on. In that case, the show did not go on.
So as fun as some of these stories have been, I really, really hope that you've never had to encounter anything like any of these. And I hope that every single gig that you have is smooth sailing, always and forever. It probably won't be, but I hope it will be. Now, if you want to dive deeper into learning about how to make your performances the best that they can possibly be, I encourage you to check us out at Danny Robertson Music, where we can help you with all kinds of things like stage presence, putting songs together in a way that makes sense so that they flow in a very energetic and fun way, and so much more. So check us out when you get a chance. In the meantime, best of luck to you on your next gig. I hope you never deal with any type of gig horror story, and we'll see you soon. Take care.